The next speaker, without any waste of time, and also more important, thanks for Agri that you kept to your time. We are now back on our program if you look at our times. It's Rio Noluchungu, currently the Corporate Services Executive for Nelson Mandela Bay Municipality, and I think it's also a guy that is known to all of us for his work that he did as a former SALGA policy strategist and spokesperson, and I think there's no any other person that understands issues of local government like that. And I think in the midst as well, I want to say Eastern Cape, they are very good people. During the tea breaks, we met a lot of important guys, I think at the right time, so clearly we've got a very broader community from the Eastern Cape. I'd like to acknowledge Vuyo Hoho, Ms. Vuyo Hoho, the manager of the ICT Public Works, manager ICT in the Eastern Cape Public Works. Ayanda Nkundla, who's the IT manager in the Office of the Premier, together with, I think, Ms. Nwabisa Pulumo is also the manager looking at the GIS component, so the planning is very critical in the Eastern Cape RC. And then later, lastly, I think it's Alfred Mamafa, is a long-term investment manager in the ECDC in the Eastern Cape. So without any further ado, Rio, can you please come and address us? Thank you.
Thank you, facilitator. Not sure whether it's the afternoon already or morning. I will also be very brief in that I will observe protocol and I will not acknowledge people individually, but to also take the opportunity on behalf of the municipality to say thank you to the industry and thank you to the event organizers for allowing us the opportunity to come here and present our thoughts on this very important, and dynamic aspect of, ICT implementation. I'm the Executive Director in the Nelson Mandela Bay Municipality, responsible for, amongst other things, ICT, human resource management, corporate support services, etc. I've been asked to talk a bit about partnership opportunities from our perspective in relation to convergence. I wanted to put my bona fides first on the table before I get to the presentation, because people have a different view of what a partnership is. Other people think it's a procurement opportunity, other people think it's a business deal, and whatever the case may be. I want to allay upfront, any misunderstandings that may accrue, that for us partnership is totally different, as you would see in the presentation that we'll be shortly going through. I think I also need to perhaps acknowledge, without necessarily knowing who's here, I'm assuming that this summit is not just about industry people. There are a whole lot of other players that are coming from other spheres of government, possibly NGOs and other stakeholders who obviously have an interest in this particular summit. In terms of the presentation outline, I will be focusing on the following aspects. Firstly, the local government strategic context. The reason why we always start talking about this thing is because our interaction with IT at all times is premised on one thing, what our mandate is as local government. If the premise is other than what the local government imperative is, therefore means we are basically engaging in those partnerships from a wrong basis. Hence, you will see when we talk to that issue, we'll be talking about service delivery things, perhaps at a far more high level than the more operational aspects that often come to the fore in terms of the new service delivery protest. I'm not going to be taking that slant, but I'll be taking more from a long-term sustainability point of view. And I'll share with you what, in our view, partnership is, and you will see from that philosophy that partnership to us is not rent-thinking, is not short-term, but has a lot of components which are sustainable which are about adding value to that partnership, and the fact that those partnerships are not just about us and the industry to the exclusion of other stakeholders within the metro. I will fill you in on our understanding or interpretation of what convergence is, because it's important to do so, because therefore it makes the industry know from what point of view do we deal with issues of convergence. Not so much that it's different to the industry, but it's got a particular peculiarity to it in the context of the work and the mandate that we have to deliver on. And obviously a bit on the products and service milestones that we feel we have achieved that far on our road, to strengthening the institution from a point of view of service delivery, using a lot of ICT capability and partnerships. And we'll try and focus ahead of ourselves what is in store, so that the industry can also start marching over those things. And for those that want to position themselves, they can position themselves accordingly, and also understand, what our specific needs are, from the point of view that, in the main, your responsibility to us is basically to facilitate, or enhance our objectives from an enabling point of view. And then lastly, I will talk about some, aspects which, from the point of view of our observation, are issues that we think the industry must start looking at and perhaps applying their minds on how best we in the industry can start collaborating. Not so much to do big things, but to do the small things on the basis of what we already have in terms of infrastructure, so that there are realizable benefits to the citizens out there, which are visible. Because we all know that, and I'm not trying to hit politicians, ICT is very invisible to politicians. It's very difficult to sell, and yet it's got massive capital outlays. And you can imagine when you're trying to sell service delivery as an instrument of an enhanced service delivery against other competing priorities like housing, infrastructure development and maintenance. You've got to sell it not on anything else other than the service delivery template. So it's important that as we partner with yourselves, we must take particular attention to those kinds of dynamics. And the dynamics, obviously, of interacting with the decision makers at local government level. About local government, we are all in local government for those 5 things and nothing else. And everything that you interact with about local government, whether at an operational or strategic level, is pretty much provided for in those 5 key strategic priorities. And the first priority is about how do we transform our institutions of local government and develop them such that they are in a position to fulfill their mandate. How do we staff the institution with skilled people? How do we develop policies, procedures, systems, be it IT systems or any other kind of systems, to be able to ensure that municipalities do actually do their work? It doesn't end there. How do we ensure that people still receive the services as constitutionally envisaged? The amount of water that they have to receive, depending on the category of citizens that they belong to, the quality of the water, the sewage on time, the waste, and all those kinds of things. Those things still have to be done while we're trying to build institutions in terms of their internal and external capacity, including looking after the infrastructure on a long-term basis. While we have to do that, we also have to ensure that within the confines of our environment, or of our geographical environment, we have to enable local economic development. We have to ensure that we create the conditions necessary for people to access jobs and hopefully sustain those jobs over a long period of time. We have to ensure that even the capabilities from an IT point of view that we deploy do actually give the necessary impetus